It was pitch black as the Dolly left port on Tuesday, headed out to sea, traveling at 8 knots, a little more than 9 miles per hour. A mere 4 minutes elapsed from the first signs of trouble to the moment the ship crashed into the bridge. At 1:24 a.m., the lights suddenly went out on the ship's deck. They came back 1 minute later as dark smoke started billowing from the stack. At 1:26 a.m., the Dolly appeared to turn, but at the same moment, the lights went out again. The ship's pilot made an urgent distress call for any nearby tugboats to assist. 2 minutes later, 1:28 a.m., the ship collided with the bridge, the superstructure quickly crumbling into the river below. Police dispatch audio shows officers radioed to stop traffic less than 30 seconds after the distress call.
Hold on traffic on the Key Bridge. There's a ship approaching. It just lost their steering.
Dashcam video shows the workers on the bridge before the tragedy struck.
Dispatch, the whole bridge just fell down.
As most of you probably know by now, the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, Maryland collapsed last week. But before the cleanup crews could even get started, we were hit with a barrage of right-wing disinformation. So today I want to look at who is spreading these conspiracy theories, why they might want to spread them, and also take a look at how the right uses disinformation to advance their political agenda. So to kick things off, let's go ahead and take a look at Maria Bartiromo. She's going to say that maybe this is a terrorist attack caused by, you guessed it, Biden's open borders. Let's take a look.
White House says there are no indications of foul play here. Of course, we're all worried about a potential, terrorist attack, given the wide open border.
I'm no expert on what's going on the seas, but all I would say is that if you talk to employers in America, they'll tell you that filling slots with employees who aren't drug-addled is a very huge problem.
And what are we doing to make sure that we have the best infrastructure in the world so that when a ship passes by and clips the bridge, that it doesn't entirely collapse?
Alex Jones tweeting, "Looks deliberate to me. A cyber attack is probable. World War III has already started."
Now, there is no indication that there has been a terrorist attack. All information right now points to this being a tragic accident. So, why do you think Maria Bartiromo would want to spread this type of lie, this type of conspiracy? And I would argue it's to push fear about immigration. In her worldview, Joe Biden has opened up the southern border, and now we are being attacked here inside America by a terrorist. But if you take a step back, I don't know that a terrorist attack would even make sense anyways. It's the middle of the night, you're taking a huge ship, ramming it into a bridge that not a whole lot of people are going to be on. I just don't see the logic here. But I do think it is her end goal to evoke fear about immigrants. That is one of the main things that the right wing has always stood on, and especially since it's an election year, we're going to hear more and more of this type of rhetoric that demonizes immigration. But moving on, let's see what Don Jr. has to say. He's also going to assert that there has been some sort of terrorist attack, except he's going to do it in a different type of way.
Right now, but I don't know much, but I know that these big diesel engines are, let's just call it like really fucking reliable, and it seems odd that one would go out, they could go out just conveniently and also conveniently within a couple hundred yards of a critical infrastructure bridge that's there for transporting hazardous waste in one of our biggest port areas in the country. Like, I don't know, folks. I'm not going to go and say it because then they'll say Don Jr.'s being a conspiracy theorist. But like all conspiracy theories, they turn out to be right, in the future. So I will let other people come out. But I honestly don't. The bigger thing is this. If it was an attack, I don't believe they'd tell us. I don't believe that Joe Biden or the Democrats and this administration would tell us that it's an attack. I believe that they would sweep that under the rug because, man, that would be damning. If one of these foreign adversaries started taking out our critical infrastructure with cyber attacks on his watch, given all his other failures in an election year.
So I think we're all pretty familiar with this just asking questions technique where somebody can just assert a baseless claim in the form of a question. Now, this is going to give Don Jr. plausible deniability later if somebody asks him about his wild assertion. He can just say, oh, well, I was just asking questions. This is a pretty common disinformation tactic, and we often see this in big events like this where there might be a lack of information. But not only is Don Jr. trying to instill a little bit of fear, he's also trying to instill a little bit of distrust. How did he do it? He says, well, the Biden administration, the Democrats, if it was a terrorist attack, they wouldn't let us know anyway. They would just sweep it under the rug. So I think it's pretty clear as to what he's trying to do. He wants you to vote for Daddy Trump in November. So he wants to build this worldview where people are scared of a terrorist attack that is being maybe caused by Joe Biden's open borders, and then you can't trust the Biden administration anyway because they're not being truthful with you now. That's the type of worldview that he's trying to concoct for his listeners. But moving on, we've got Victor Davis Hanson invoking another boogeyman that we're all familiar with, DEI. Yes, that's right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is responsible for the shipwreck. Let's just play it.
But we do know this, that the world is much more interconnected, it's much more fragile than it ever has been, it's much more sophisticated, and it demands an ever greater level of expertise. But just at the time that we're building bigger and bigger and more dangerous ships, or we're assembling longer and longer trains that derail, like we saw at East Palestine with more and more toxic, we're not upping our game as far as increasing the level of expertise and especially, Eric, meritocracy. So we're not hiring necessarily the best people. We used to say we're going to hire the best people regardless of their color of their skin, their sexual orientation. Now we're saying, well, we may hire the best people, but more importantly, is their ideology or their ethnicity or their gender or their sexual orientation. And unfortunately, it's exactly the wrong time to do it because
I really have no idea what the hell this guy is talking about. First of all, the vessel is owned by a company in Singapore. It's also managed by a different company in Singapore. There was 21 crew members on the ship, and none of them were American. 20 of them were from India, and the other one was from Sri Lanka. So I don't know how American DEI policies could have played any role in this accident whatsoever. It just does not make any sense. But this is just another common tactic that we see when there are times of uncertainty. People take a known boogeyman, in this case, DEI, which has exclusively been tied to the Democrats and the left, and they use that as a way to sow distrust or uncertainty or doubt in these types of policies, and that will, in turn, make people doubt whether or not they should vote for somebody like the Democrats in November. This is a very common tactic. We see it used all the time, and DEI has been one of those things that's been going around the past year. No matter what it is, they always find a way to blame it on DEI. Now, I just wanted to show you one more video, and I think this video really illustrates what the consequences are of the right wing constantly spewing conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy. We have Senator Eric Schmidt laying out a list of grievances like they're true and saying, hey, this is why you can't trust the current administration. So let's go ahead and take a look at what he has to say, and maybe we'll go back and listen to some of the key parts.
And that's the angle. Joining us now is Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt, who serves on the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee. Senator, is there anything the administration can do at this point to make most Americans trust both their explanations and their handling of what is a nightmare for the United States with this bridge collapse?
Well, I think the first thing is to make sure that the families of those who are missing know that all of America is pulling for them and praying for them right now. It's a tragic accident and something that I know this is something that should pull us together, and you need leaders who are focused on that. And my hope is that we would come together, Republican, Democrat, to make sure we're doing everything we can to support those families and get the people of Baltimore and commerce up and moving again, right? This is a very important port. But to your point, the problem here is this is the consequence, this sort of distrust of terrible leadership. When you have an administration that has weaponized the Department of Justice, tried to throw in political opponents in jail, tried to throw them off the ballot, conducted a vast censorship enterprise to silence Americans who don't buy into their narrative, whether it was on efficacy of masks or transmissibility of COVID after you've had the vaccine, or the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, time and time again, Laura, these folks have viewed half the country as the enemy, and they're willing to try to silence them under any means necessary. And we're right to be distrustful of this administration because of their past actions. And
Now, it's really hard to take anything that this guy is saying seriously, because almost everything, if not every single thing that he just listed, is a right-wing conspiracy theory. Let's go back and see if we can point these out.
Opponents in jail, tried to this sort of distrust of terrible leadership. When you have an administration that has weaponized the Department of Justice,
there has been no evidence provided to say that Biden is weaponizing the Justice Department, okay?
Tried to throw in political opponents in jail.
I don't know which political opponents he's talking about, but he can't be talking about Trump. There's been no evidence provided that Biden has been at all involved in the prosecutions of Trump.
Tried to throw him off the ballot.
Okay, there's also been no evidence provided that Joe Biden has been involved in trying to get Trump removed from the ballot. In a lot of the cases, these have been Republicans bringing these lawsuits, trying to kick Trump off the ballot because they believe he's an insurrectionist, and due to the 14th Amendment, he should not be eligible to run in 2024. Simple as that. Biden has had nothing to do with this. He has made a definitive point of staying clear of all of this.
Conducted a vast censorship enterprise to silence Americans who don't buy into their narrative.
I would imagine that he's talking about the Twitter files, which did not show any coercion of these platforms to take down anything. And I don't think asking Twitter to remove Hunter Biden dick pics constitutes censorship.
Whether it was on efficacy of masks or transmissibility of
masks, may not be 100% efficacious, but they definitely can help, especially during a pandemic.
COVID after you've had the vaccine, or the Hunter Biden laptop. I mean, time and time again.
The Hunter Biden laptop, there was some damning information on there from Hunter Biden, but none of that information has been connected back to Joe Biden in any way. So it's wild to me that every single thing that he just listed, he's using to discredit the Biden administration, but they're all provably false or unverified things. This is crazy town. And like I said, I think that this is a consequence of the right wing being willing to dabble in conspiracy after conspiracy after conspiracy. They have built this worldview on a stack of cards that if you take out one of these conspiracies, then the whole thing comes tumbling down. So I thought that this video was pretty hilarious, and I wanted to point that out on how we get these downstream effects of all of these conspiracies that the right wing peddles in. So to wrap things up, I just wanted to say that sometimes accidents happen, and sometimes those accidents are tragic. But it's okay to take a step back and say, I don't have enough information to draw any conclusions. But we should definitely be on the lookout for these bad actors filling these information vacuums with conspiracy theories and speculation. These people are relentless, they're coordinated, and they're using disinformation to build a worldview where the truth feels out of reach, and they're doing this to obtain political power. This is a page directly out of the authoritarian playbook, and we should definitely be diligent when it comes to consuming information. Well, that's going to do it for me on this one, folks. If you feel like I got something wrong, or if you disagree with me on something, feel free to drop a comment below. And if you want to see what Trump's ex-cabinet officials say about his authoritarian tendencies, watch the video that's on the screen now. But I'll see you on the next one.